Yo, welcome to the Film by Film Play Breakdowns. This series I'm starting in the offseason is going to be called Miscast in the NBA. One of the biggest questions around basketball to me has always been, can you identify the players who are really good at something but might not be getting the usage in that role? So for example, like one of the best examples is Jalen Brunson when he was on the Mavs. All his percentiles across a lot of the on-ball metrics like isolations, pick and rolls, all of these were top tier. But obviously, when you have a player like Luka there, you're not going to get as many of the opportunities on ball or as many of the reps on ball, right? So I wanted to set down a path of, can I identify these type of players with data? And then also, like, now that I have the data of, oh, this player is really interesting to look at, can I see on film whether or not I think that they're going to make kind of that leap into a new expanded role if they get that opportunity? So a little bit about my background. If you're coming from this prior NBA season, I did a lot of Knicks content stuff. I primarily moved all of that stuff out of this personal account. So I started working with the Strickland and I started working with CP at Knicks Fan TV, just to put more of my Knicks content to Knicks creators who have established companies. Both are phenomenal mediums for Knicks content. And I'll link my stuff below. I'll link their sites below as well. So go check that out if that's why you originally joined or subscribed to this channel. I apologize, I've just moved a lot of it off this channel, but I put out a lot of good content. I'll link it below if you want to check those stuff out. But this offseason, I want to really focus on some of that player profile stuff that I just mentioned. I also previously on this channel had some of that player stuff. Like I did one on Dyson, Amen, Cade, Jared McCain. But I want to get a little bit back into that more, just different players, player profiles, how I think they're being misused. And then I'm just really interested in whether or not these players will take leaps once they're put into new situations or increase usage in their current situations, right? So to that end, I needed something really easy for me to see, like, oh, this is how this player is being used. And then this is also how good they are at this specific role, right? So with that said, I built this dashboard that I'm going to show you, and I'll kind of walk through like how I structured it and how I'm looking at it and how I'm using it. So let's get into it. So I created this dashboard. This is basically NBA players and what their offensive role is. And I'll just walk through the methodology really, really quickly. I have a Substack article that goes more in depth in terms of how I created it. But generally, what I wanted to look at is just how a player is being used. So I'm not taking in any variables around how good they are at something, but I'm only looking at like how often they're running isolations, how often they're running off ball, how often they're driving, how long they have the ball in their hands, how many dribbles they take, things of that nature. So all usage stats, where are they getting their touches, how many touches, right? And then from those stats, I'm then categorizing a player based on a clustering algorithm into where they're most closely aligned, right? So these are the 7 roles that I came up with. Here you have your interior bigs. These are like your duck and centers on offense. So like Rudy Gobert, Jared Allen, players like that. Movement shooters, these are like your Currys. These players come off a lot of like handoffs, off-ball shooters. They also shoot a lot above the break versus corners. Perimeter connectors are like players that don't have immense usage in any particular area. They're kind of used like across the board, right? So like think of your Derek Whites, players like that. Primary creator, obviously these are like your Jalen Brunson, Shea, players who have the ball a lot and create a lot of offense. Short roll connectors, these are players who set a lot of screens, but they're more like of the wing variant. They play a lot through the elbows. These are like your Josh Harts, your Draymond Greens, player like that. Also good passers and assisters, playing on in those like 4v3 situations, right? Spot up shooters, these have a lot of spot up plays. Obviously, these are more corner shooters, stationary shooters, not as much movement shooters. So these are more like what OG Anunoby was throughout the course of the season. And then your focal bigs, these are your Jokic's, your Sabonis. Centers who you're playing your offense through, high assist numbers, elbow touches as well, post touches, good passing out of drives, and then also running a lot of offense, right? So these are kind of my categories. From there, I have how good you are at these specific roles. And in basketball, there's really no like catch-all metric, right? I'm not saying like these are by any means perfect metrics. I'm just saying like these are good indicators for me to start digging into the film, right? And for the most part, these kind of match up, right? Like Jalen Brunson's a great primary creator. Josh Hart played a lot in the short roll. He was literally the best short roll connector earlier on in the season, tailed off at the end. Makes sense. So this is like a good example, right? Do I think like Hart is in the 93rd percentile as a primary creator? No, not really. But throughout the course of the season, watching every single Knicks game and like breaking down Knicks film, I think Hart had on-ball chops where he probably should have been given the opportunity to be a primary creator a little bit more. I don't necessarily think he would have been like a top 10 percentile primary creator, but I think like he had the ability to showcase maybe that it was worthwhile to get him some on-ball reps, right? So like I think this is directionally correct. I don't think like the raw number is necessarily correct, but again, this is to help me like point me in a direction to start watching a player, right? So like a better example would be, this one's a little crazy. If I sort every single team by primary creator, I see like Jalen Duran in the 97th percentile of primary creator. Do I think that's right? Obviously not, right? Like I think Duran's an interesting case because like he was really good having offense run through him too as like a focal big, but like as a primary creator, like no, he's obviously not one of the in the 3rd percentile of primary creators in the NBA, right? Why does that happen? Well, let's take a look at his player profile. If I click into it, I basically have like box score stats, and then throughout the season where they're trending, so all your box score stats, and then you can kind of see like efficiency. Then I have your advanced stats, right? Offensive rating, net rating, things of that nature, same thing, 1 through 82. And then kind of like your usage, like where are you getting touches? So like for Durant, he was getting more touches throughout the season. Pretty interesting to me. I'll probably do a breakdown of Durant, but the example I wanted to point to was like he's in the 97th percentile of primary creator, right? And the reason for that is he is really strong as a pick and roll ball handler. And what I mean by that is he was one of the best in terms of efficiency in his points per possession, 1.35. That will be in the 99th percentile. But obviously he's just not being used in that role, right? So like here you can see he's never getting these reps. He has 2.3% of possessions, only in the 3rd percent or only in the 2nd percentile, right? He has 2.5% of possessions, and he's only in the 2nd percentile in terms of how many possessions he gets, right? But when I'm looking at how good they are at a specific role, I'm not really taking into account how much they're used in it. So he is one of the best pick and roll ball handlers according to my algorithm. He's pretty good in isolation according to my algorithm, right? Like this is now 81st percentile, even though both of these pick and roll ball handler and isolation, he's not really getting a lot of reps in, right? So like to me, it's interesting. Like this isn't nothing, so that's why I'm gonna go watch the film on Durant at some point. But it's obviously not like he's in the 97th percentile. But this is probably an indication that like you're okay with him like running some offense, right? This is probably a good indicator of that. It's just not that he's the best at it in the NBA, right? So like that's how I'm using this dashboard. It matches up a pretty good amount for the Knicks. For the rest of the league, it's just something I'm gonna start digging into and diving into. So like I'll just point out some of the interesting players to me, like Ty Jerome, really good on ball, perimeter connector, not a primary creator. Denny's an interesting one to me. He's in the 95th percentile. I'll probably do a Denny one. Santi is also interesting. I'll probably do a Santi one because Santi is a free agent. So like if I go to Santi, right, like here, you can see for Santi, he was a spot-up shooter, but he's like a really, really good movement shooter, right, 98th percentile. So this is like an indication that maybe he's not being used in a role where like he's getting a lot of off-ball reps, but maybe he should be, right? So like that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm going to be diving a lot deeper into different players, and then I'll have a video for each player. And I'll also do a breakdown of like some of their stats. Like as I'm looking through them, I'll start the video with like, here's how Santi did, here's how Santi was trending, and then continue on that path. But that's my goal for this series. I think it's really interesting. These are some players that like might really, really accelerate, or not accelerate, but like might look a lot different in a new role. And I'm just excited to see whether or not that plays out. It'll be a combo of looking at data, looking at a lot of data, and then also looking at a lot of film, which is what I enjoy doing the most, right? So if you've gotten this far and you're excited, subscribe. I'll probably do like once a week, have a different player, and then yeah, I'm really excited to get this started. See you.